The door swung open, and my heart stopped. I was sprawled on my bed, journal in hand, scribbling secrets I'd never dare to speak aloud, when she walked in, unannounced, unapologetic, and utterly unaware of the storm she'd just ignited. Harper, my new neighbor, stood there, her silhouette framed by the fading Oregon sunlight, and in that split second, my quiet life in Willow Creek unraveled. I'd moved to this sleepy coastal town 6 months ago, seeking refuge from the chaos of Portland. At 22, I was still figuring out who I was, Ellie Harper, a barista with a penchant for poetry and a heart full of questions I was too scared to answer. My tiny apartment, with its creaky floors and thrift store furniture, was my sanctuary. Until Harper. She was everything I wasn't: bold, unfiltered, and unashamedly herself. At 23, Harper Quinn had a laugh that could wake a coma patient and eyes that seemed to see right through you. She'd moved into the apartment next door a week ago, and I'd already heard her music through the walls: indie rock, loud and unapologetic. I hadn't expected her to barge into my life, literally. "Sorry, I thought this was my place," Harper said, her voice a mix of amusement and mock horror as she froze in the doorway. Her blonde hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a faded denim jacket over a black tank top. "These apartments all look the same, huh?" I scrambled to sit up, slamming my journal shut. My cheeks burned. Yeah, no worries," I stammered, my voice betraying every ounce of my nerves. "You're Harper, right?" "That's me." She grinned, stepping inside like she owned the place. "And you're Ellie, the mysterious poet who hides in her room all day?" I blinked, caught off guard. "I don't hide," I lied, tucking a strand of brown hair behind my ear. "I just like my space." Harper raised an eyebrow, her gaze flicking to the journal in my lap. "Sure, poet. What's in that book? Love letters? Dark secrets?" My stomach twisted. The journal was my safe haven, filled with half-written poems about longing, about the parts of myself I'd buried deep. Parts one wasn't ready to face, let alone share with a stranger. "Just stuff," I mumbled, shoving it under my pillow. She laughed, a sound that was both infuriating and disarming. "Relax, I'm not here to snoop. I was actually looking for my cat. You seen a fluffy orange menace around?" "No cats here," I said, grateful for the change of subject. "But I'll keep an eye out." "Thanks, neighbor." She lingered, her eyes scanning my room. The mismatched furniture, the string lights, the stack of books on my desk. "Cute place. You should come over sometime. I make a mean taco." I managed a weak smile. "Maybe." She winked and sauntered out, leaving the door ajar and my heart pounding. I sat there, staring at the empty doorway, wondering why her presence felt like a spark in a room full of kindling. Over the next week, Harper became a constant. She'd knock on my door with excuses: a missing cat, a borrowed cup of sugar, a question about the landlord. Each time, she stayed a little longer, her energy filling the room like a summer storm. I didn't know what to make of her. She was chaos, and I was order. She was fearless, and I was terrified. One evening, as rain battered the windows, she showed up with a bottle of cheap wine and 2 mismatched glasses. "You look like you need a break from brooding," she said, plopping onto my couch without invitation. "I don't brood," I protested, but I took the glass she offered. The wine was terrible, but her laughter made it bearable. We talked for hours, about her art degree, my abandoned dreams of being a writer, the way Willow Creek felt like a place where time stood still. She told me about growing up in Seattle, about coming out at 16 and never looking back. Her confidence was magnetic, and it scared me, because every time she leaned closer, every time her hand brushed mine, I felt something stir, something I'd spent years trying to ignore. "You ever think about just letting go?" she asked, her voice soft but piercing. We were sitting cross-legged on my floor, the wine bottle empty between us. "Letting go of what?" I asked, though I knew what she meant. She tilted her head, her eyes locking onto mine. Whatever's keeping you locked up in here, Ellie. You're hiding something. I can tell. I looked away, my throat tight. She was right, but I wasn't ready to admit it. Not to her, not to myself. Instead, I changed the subject, asking about her latest painting. She let it slide, but the weight of her words lingered. Days turned into weeks, and Harper became my constant shadow. We'd walk to the pier, sharing coffee and stories. She'd tease me about my shyness, and I'd roll my eyes but secretly love it. I started to notice the way her smile lit up her face, the way her hand lingered on my arm when she laughed. I told myself it was nothing, just friendship. But late at night, when I was alone with my journal, the truth spilled out in messy, ink-stained lines. I was falling for her. The realization hit me like a tidal wave. I'd grown up in a small town where being different wasn't just frowned upon, it was dangerous. I'd learned to keep my head down, to blend in, to silence the parts of myself that didn't fit. But Harper was a mirror, reflecting everything I'd tried to hide. And I didn't know if I was ready to face it. One night, as we sat on her balcony, the air thick with the scent of salt and rain, she turned to me. "Ellie," she said, her voice quieter than usual. "Why do you keep pushing me away?" I froze, my coffee cup halfway to my lips. "I'm not." "You are," she interrupted, her eyes searching mine. "Every time I get close, you pull back. What are you so afraid of?" My heart pounded. I wanted to tell her everything, about the fear, the shame, the longing I'd buried for years. But the words wouldn't come. Instead, I stood, muttering an excuse about work, and fled to my apartment. I locked the door and sank to the floor, my journal clutched to my chest. Harper was right. I was afraid. Afraid of what it meant to feel this way. Afraid of what it would cost to be honest. But as I sat there, the truth clawed its way to the surface. I couldn't keep running from myself. Not anymore. The next morning, I woke to the sound of Harper's music through the wall, soft acoustic this time, a stark contrast to her usual blaring rock. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying our conversation from the balcony. Her words echoed in my mind. "What are you so afraid of?" I didn't have an answer then, but the question had burrowed deep, refusing to let go. I avoided her for 2 days. It wasn't hard. Willow Creek was small, but I knew how to disappear. I took longer shifts at the coffee shop, stayed late to clean, and kept my door locked. But Harper wasn't one to be ignored. On the 3rd day, she cornered me outside our building, her arms crossed and her expression a mix of frustration and concern. "Ellie, what's going on?" she asked, blocking my path to the stairs. "You've been ghosting me." I shifted my weight, clutching my bag like a shield. "I've just been busy." "Bullshit," she said, her voice sharp but not unkind. "You're avoiding me." Did I do something? "No," I said quickly, too quickly. "It's not you. It's me." Her eyes softened, but she didn't move. "Talk to me, Ellie. I'm not going anywhere." I wanted to run, to hide, to bury myself in my journal where it was safe. But the way she looked at me, open, steady, unafraid, made it impossible to turn away. "Can we go somewhere private?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She nodded, leading me to the pier. The ocean stretched out before us, gray and restless under a cloudy sky. We sat on a bench, the wind tugging at our hair, and for a moment, neither of us spoke. The silence was heavy, but it wasn't uncomfortable. It was like Harper knew I needed time to gather my courage. "I've never told anyone this," I started, my hands twisting in my lap. Back in my hometown, being different wasn't okay. My family, my church, they made it clear that anything outside their rules was wrong. I learned to keep quiet, to hide who I was. And I've been doing it ever since. Harper listened, her gaze fixed on me, not judging, just waiting. I took a shaky breath and continued. "When I moved here, I thought I could start over. Be myself. But it's not that easy. I'm scared, Harper. Scared of what it means to feel the way I do.
About you.
Her eyes widened slightly, but she didn't interrupt. I forced myself to keep going. I've never let myself think about it too much. About liking girls. About liking you. It's like there's this wall inside me, and every time I get close to tearing it down, I freeze. For a moment, she was quiet. Then she reached out, her hand covering mine. Her touch was warm, grounding. Ellie, she said softly, you don't have to have it all figured out. But you don't have to hide either. Not from me. I looked at her, my chest tight with a mix of fear and hope. What if I'm not ready? I whispered. Then we take it slow, she said, her thumb brushing over my knuckles. But you don't get to shut me out. Deal? I nodded, a small smile breaking through. Deal. From that day, things shifted. Harper didn't push, but she didn't let me retreat, either. She'd show up with coffee, drag me to art galleries, or insist we watch cheesy rom-coms on her beat-up couch. Each moment chipped away at my walls, and I started to feel something new. Freedom. Not the kind that comes all at once, but the slow, steady kind that grows with every laugh, every shared glance. One night, at a local art fair, Harper's paintings were on display. Her work was vibrant, chaotic, full of life, just like her. I wandered through the crowd, my eyes drawn to a canvas of two figures silhouetted against a sunset, their hands almost touching. It felt like us, caught in that fragile space between fear and possibility. You like it? Harper asked, appearing beside me. It's beautiful, I said, my voice catching. It feels personal. She grinned, a little shy for once. It is. I painted it after that night on the pier. My heart skipped. I didn't know what to say, so I just stood there, letting the moment wrap around us like a warm blanket. For the first time, I didn't feel the need to run. But life in Willow Creek wasn't all sunsets and art fairs. The town had its share of narrow minds, and I'd overheard enough whispers at the coffee shop to know not everyone was as open as Harper. One afternoon, as we walked back from the pier, a group of guys outside the hardware store stared a little too long. One of them muttered something under his breath, and though I couldn't hear the words, the tone was unmistakable. Harper's hand tightened around mine. Ignore them, she said, her voice low but firm. I tried, but the weight of their gazes followed us. It was a reminder of why I'd spent so long hiding. That night, I wrote in my journal, what if this is too hard? What if I'm not strong enough? The next day, Harper showed up at my door with a plan. We're going to Portland, she announced, holding up 2 bus tickets. You need to see there's a world beyond this town. I hesitated, but her enthusiasm was contagious. We spent the day wandering through Portland's vibrant streets, visiting queer bookstores and cozy cafes. For the first time, I saw people like us, holding hands, laughing, living without apology. It was overwhelming, but it was also a glimpse of what could be. On the bus ride back, Harper fell asleep, her head on my shoulder. I watched the rain streak down the window, my heart full. I wasn't ready to shout my truth from the rooftops, but with Harper beside me, I felt like I could take the next step, whatever that was. Portland changed something in me. The city's pulse, its unapologetic acceptance, lingered like a promise. But back in Willow Creek, reality was less forgiving. Harper and I grew closer, our days filled with stolen moments, her hand brushing mine as we cooked dinner, her laughter echoing in my apartment. Yet, the fear I'd carried for years didn't vanish overnight. It lurked, waiting for a reason to resurface. One evening, we were at the local diner, sharing a plate of fries. Harper was telling a story about her first art show, her hands waving animatedly, when I noticed a woman at the counter staring. Her expression wasn't curious, it was cold, judgmental. I shrank into the booth, my fingers tightening around my glass. What's wrong? Harper asked, her voice pulling me back. Nothing, I lied, but my eyes betrayed me, flicking toward the woman. Harper followed my gaze, her jaw tightening. Ignore her, Ellie. She doesn't get to ruin our night. But it wasn't just her. It was the whispers, the glances, the subtle shifts in how people treated me once they saw us together. Willow Creek was small, and word spread fast. At work, my manager started scheduling me for fewer shifts, claiming budget cuts. A regular customer, who'd always been friendly, stopped making eye contact. The weight of it pressed on me, heavier each day. Harper noticed.
Of course she did.
One night, as we sat on my couch, she turned to me, her expression serious. Ellie, talk to me. You've been distant. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. It's just this town. It's starting to feel like a cage again. She reached for my hand, her touch steady. Then let's get out. We could move to Portland, start fresh. You and me. The idea was tempting, but it also terrified me. Leaving meant uprooting everything. My job, my apartment, the fragile sense of safety I'd built. I don't know if I'm ready, I admitted. What if it's not enough? What if I'm not enough? Harper's eyes softened. You are enough, Ellie. You always have been.
But you don't have to decide now.
Just don't shut me out, okay? I nodded, but the doubt lingered. That night, I wrote in my journal, what if love isn't enough to fix this? What if I'm too broken to be fixed? The next week, things took a turn. I was closing up the coffee shop when my phone buzzed with a text from Harper. Meet me at the pier.
Urgent.
My stomach dropped. I locked up and ran, the cool night air biting at my skin. When I reached the pier, Harper was there, pacing, her face pale. What's wrong? I asked, breathless. She turned, her eyes blazing. Someone spray-painted my car. A slur, right across the hood. My heart sank. I'd heard about vandalism in town, but this was different. This was personal. Harper, I'm so sorry. Don't. She cut me off, her voice shaking. Don't apologize for them. I needed to see you. I pulled her into a hug, and she clung to me, her usual confidence replaced by something raw and vulnerable. For the first time, I saw how much this town was wearing on her, too. She'd always seemed invincible, but even Harper had her limits. We stood there, the ocean roaring in the distance, and I made a decision. We're reporting this, I said firmly. Tomorrow. Together. She pulled back, searching my face. You sure? I nodded. I'm done hiding. The next morning, we went to the police station. The officer was polite but dismissive, saying it was probably just kids and promising to look into it. I could see the frustration in Harper's eyes, but she squeezed my hand, a silent thank you, for standing with her. Afterward, we sat in her apartment, the air heavy. I'm not letting this town win, she said, her voice fierce. But I can't do it alone, Ellie. You're not alone, I said, and for the first time I meant it. I wasn't just talking about the vandalism. I was talking about us, about the future I was starting to imagine, one where I didn't have to hide. Over the next few days, we leaned on each other. Harper repainted her car, turning the slur into a vibrant mural of flowers and waves. I started writing again, not just in my journal but poetry I shared with her, raw, honest verses about love and fear and hope. She'd listen, her eyes shining, and tell me I was braver than I thought. But the tension in Willow Creek didn't ease. The stares grew bolder, the whispers louder. One night, as we walked home from the diner, a truck slowed beside us. A man leaned out, his voice dripping with venom. You two should leave town. Harper stepped in front of me, her posture defiant. Mind your own business, she snapped. The truck sped off, but the encounter left me shaken. Back in my apartment, I paced, my mind racing. What if they're right? I said, my voice breaking. What if we don't belong here? Harper grabbed my shoulders, her eyes fierce. We belong wherever we choose to be, Ellie. Don't let them take that from you. Her words were a lifeline, but they couldn't erase the fear. That night, I lay awake, wondering if love was enough to face a world that didn't always want us. But as I listened to Harper's steady breathing through the wall, I knew one thing: I wasn't ready to give up. The weeks that followed were a tightrope walk. Harper and I grew closer, our bond a quiet rebellion against the town's hostility. We'd spend evenings in her apartment, painting or writing, creating a world where we could be ourselves. But outside, Willow Creek was a reminder that not everyone saw us the way we saw each other. One morning, I found a note slipped under my door, and signed, scrawled in Sharpie, "Leave or regret it." My hands shook as I showed it to Harper. Her face hardened, but her voice was steady. "They're cowards," she said, crumpling the note. "They don't get to scare us." But they did. I started checking my locks twice, avoiding the main streets. Harper, ever defiant, refused to let it change her. She'd hold my hand in public, her chin high, daring anyone to say something. Her courage was infectious, but it also made me ache. I wanted to be that brave, but fear was a stubborn shadow. One night, we went to a local open mic at the community center. I'd signed up to read a poem, my first time sharing my work publicly. Harper had convinced me, saying it was time to stop hiding. As I stood at the mic, my hands trembling, I saw her in the front row, her smile a beacon. I read a poem about love, about finding light in the dark. The room was quiet, and for a moment I felt free. Then came the applause, sparse, hesitant. A few people clapped, but others stared, their silence louder than words. As we left, a man muttered, "Disgusting," under his breath. Harper spun around, ready to confront him, but I grabbed her arm. "Let's go," I whispered. I didn't want a scene, not tonight. Back at my apartment, Harper was furious. "Why do you let them get away with it?" she demanded. "You're stronger than this, Ellie." "I'm trying," I snapped, my voice breaking. "But it's not easy for me like it is for you." Her expression softened. "It's not easy for me either," she admitted. I've had years to get used to it. I forget sometimes that you're still figuring it out." I sank onto the couch, my head in my hands. "I want to be brave, Harper. I do. But every time I try, it feels like the world's pushing back." She sat beside me, her hand on my knee. Then we pushed back harder. Together. The next day, we decided to fight in our own way. Harper organized a small art exhibit at the local library, showcasing her work and inviting other queer artists from nearby towns. I helped her set up, hanging paintings and stringing lights. The exhibit was a quiet act of defiance, a way to say we weren't invisible. The turnout was small but warm. A few locals came, curious, and some queer kids from Portland showed up, their energy a reminder of the world beyond Willow Creek. One girl, barely 16, approached me, her eyes wide. "Your poem last night, it meant a lot," she said. "I didn't know there were people like us here." Her words hit me hard. I'd been so focused on my own fear that I hadn't realized I could make a difference, even a small one. Harper squeezed my hand, her pride palpable. For the first time, I felt like I was part of something bigger. But the victory was short-lived. That night, someone threw a brick through the library window, shattering the display. A note was attached. "Freaks don't belong here." The police called it a random act, but we knew better. Harper was furious, but I was gutted. It felt personal, like a direct attack on the fragile hope we'd built. We cleaned up the glass together, our hands moving in silence. When we finished, Harper pulled me into a hug. "We're not done," she whispered. "They don't get to win." Her words gave me strength, but they also stirred a new fear. What if this was only the beginning? What if the cost of being ourselves was too high? I didn't voice those thoughts, but they haunted me as we walked home, the night pressing in around us. The next morning, Harper showed up at my door with a new plan. "We're starting a support group," she announced, "for queer kids in town. Somewhere safe to talk, to be themselves." I stared at her, torn between admiration and dread. "Harper, after everything, are you sure?" She nodded, her eyes fierce. especially after everything. We can't let them silence us. I agreed, but my heart was heavy. The support group was a bold move, but it was also a risk. Willow Creek wasn't ready for us, and I wasn't sure I was ready for the fight. But as I looked at Harper, her determination unshaken, I knew I couldn't let her do it alone. The support group started small, just a handful of us in a borrowed room at the community center. Harper led with her usual fire, sharing her story and encouraging others to open up. I was quieter, offering smiles and coffee, but inside, I was a mess of nerves. Every creak of the door made me flinch, expecting trouble. But the kids who showed up, teenagers mostly, were hungry for connection. Their stories, raw and honest, reminded me why we were doing this. One girl, Mia, shared how she'd been kicked out by her parents for coming out. Harper and I exchanged a glance, our resolve hardening. After the meeting, we offered Mia a place to crash until she could figure things out. It was a small gesture, but it felt like a step toward something bigger. Word of the group spread, and so did the backlash. Flyers were torn down, replaced with hateful notes. My boss at the coffee shop suggested I take a leave of absence, citing customer complaints. I knew it was an excuse, but I didn't fight it. I couldn't afford to lose my job entirely. Harper, meanwhile, was a force of nature. She reached out to queer organizations in Portland, securing donations for art supplies and snacks for the group. She painted a mural on the community center wall, a vibrant rainbow with the words "You are enough" in bold letters. It was beautiful, but it also made us a target. One night, as we were locking up after a meeting, a group of men approached us in the parking lot. Their faces were shadowed, but their intent was clear. "You're causing trouble," one of them said, his voice low and menacing. Harper stepped forward, her chin high. "We're not the ones starting fights." I grabbed her arm, my heart racing. "Harper, let's go." But she didn't budge.
No.
"They don't get to intimidate us." The men laughed, one of them spitting on the ground. "You'll regret this," he said before they walked away. I was shaking, but Harper's hand found mine, steady as ever. At home, I couldn't sleep. The threats, the notes, the stares, it was all closing in. I wrote in my journal, "I want to be brave like Harper, but I'm terrified. What if this ends badly?" The next day, Harper showed up with a new idea, a public event, a pride celebration for Willow Creek. "We need to show them we're not going anywhere," she said, her eyes blazing. A rally, music, art. The whole town invited. I stared at her, incredulous. "After everything? Harper, that's dangerous." "Maybe," she admitted, "but staying quiet is worse. Will you help me?" I wanted to say no, to beg her to play it safe. But the fire in her eyes, the way she believed in us, in me, made it impossible to refuse. "Okay," I said, "but we're doing this carefully." We spent weeks planning, rallying support from Portland groups and a few sympathetic locals. The event was set for the town square, a bold statement in the heart of Willow Creek. As the day approached, my anxiety grew, but so did my determination. This wasn't just about us anymore. It was about Mia, about the kids in the support group, about everyone who felt like they didn't belong. The night before the rally, Harper stayed over. We lay on my bed, staring at the ceiling, our hands intertwined. "Are you scared?" she asked, her voice soft. "Terrified," I admitted, "but I'm doing it anyway." She turned to me, her smile warm. "That's what courage looks like, Ellie." For the first time, I believed her. I leaned in, closing the distance between us, and kissed her. It was soft, tentative, but it felt like coming home. She kissed me back, her hand cupping my face, and in that moment, the world outside didn't matter. It was just us, and it was enough. The rally dawned bright and clear. The town square was transformed with banners, music, and a small stage. A crowd gathered, some supportive, some curious, some openly hostile. Harper took the stage, her voice steady as she spoke about love, acceptance, and resilience. I stood in the crowd, my heart swelling with pride. Then I saw them, the same men from the parking lot, standing at the edge of the square. My stomach dropped, but I forced myself to focus on Harper. She was radiant, her words a call to action. When she finished, the crowd erupted in applause, drowning out the few jeers. I joined her on stage, my hands shaking as I took the mic. "I'm not good at this," I started, my voice wobbly. "But I'm here because love is worth fighting for. And I'm done hiding." The crowd cheered, and Harper's hand found mine, her grip strong. For the first time, I felt like I belonged, not just to her, but to myself. The rally was a turning point, but it didn't erase the tension in Willow Creek. The support group grew, drawing more kids and even a few adults, but the hostility lingered. Harper and I became symbols, heroes to some, troublemakers to others. It was exhilarating and exhausting, and I often wondered if we were fighting a losing battle. One afternoon, as we were setting up for a meeting, Mia burst in, her face pale. "They're planning something," she said, breathless. "I overheard some guys at school. They're coming for the group tonight." My heart sank. Harper's jaw tightened, but she stayed calm. "We're not canceling," she said, "but we'll be ready." We called in reinforcements, friends from Portland, a security volunteer from a queer organization. The meeting went on, but the air was thick with tension. Every sound made me jump, and I kept glancing at the door, expecting the worst. Halfway through, it happened. A group of men, 5 of them, including the ones from the parking lot, stormed in, shouting slurs and banging on tables. The kids froze, fear in their eyes. Harper stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. "Get out. Now." One of the men laughed, stepping closer. "Or what?" I stood beside her, my heart pounding but my resolve firm. "Or we call the cops," I said, holding up my phone. "And we've got witnesses." The room was silent, the tension electric. For a moment, I thought they'd push further. But then one of them muttered, "Not worth it," and they left, slamming the door behind them. The kids were shaken, but Harper rallied them, turning the meeting into a discussion about resilience. I watched her, amazed at her strength, and realized I was changing, too. I wasn't the scared girl who'd hidden in her journal anymore. I was fighting, not just for myself, but for all of us. After the meeting, we reported the incident to the police, who promised to keep an eye out. It wasn't enough, but it was something. That night, Harper and I sat on her balcony, the ocean a distant roar. "We can't stay here forever," she said quietly. "This town, it's not ready for us." I nodded, the truth settling in. "Portland?" I asked. She smiled, her hand finding mine. "Portland." The decision wasn't easy. Leaving meant giving up the life we'd built, flawed as it was. But it also meant a chance to live openly without fear. We started planning, pooling our savings and looking for apartments. The support group promised to keep going, with Mia stepping up to lead. As we packed, I found my old journal, its pages filled with fear and longing. I flipped to a blank page and wrote, "I'm not running anymore. I'm choosing myself." The day we left, the kids from the group threw us a small goodbye party. Mia gave us a painting, a vibrant abstract of 2 figures holding hands against a stormy sky. "You gave us hope," she said, her voice thick with emotion. I hugged her, tears in my eyes. "You gave us hope, too." The drive to Portland was quiet, the road stretching out like a promise. Harper reached for my hand, her smile soft. "Ready for this?" she asked. "Ready," I said, and for the first time, I believed it. In Portland, we found a small apartment in a vibrant neighborhood. It wasn't perfect, cramped with noisy neighbors, but it was ours. I got a job at a bookstore, and Harper started teaching art classes. We built a new life, one where we could hold hands without looking over our shoulders. But Willow Creek stayed with us. We get texts from Mia, updates about the support group thriving. The mural Harper painted was still there, a quiet symbol of resistance. And every so often, I'd pull out my journal, not to hide, but to write about love, courage, and the life we were building. Our first month in Portland was a whirlwind. The city welcomed us with open arms, queer bookstores, pride flags in shop windows, people who didn't stare when we kissed on the street. It wasn't perfect, but it was a world away from Willow Creek. I started writing again, publishing poems in local zines, my voice growing stronger with every word. Harper's art flourished, her paintings selling at galleries and community events. But the scars of Willow Creek lingered. Some nights, I'd wake up, heart racing, expecting a knock on the door or a hateful note. Harper would hold me, her voice a steady anchor. "We're safe here," she'd whisper, and slowly, I started to believe her. One evening, we got a call from Mia. The support group was hosting its first Pride event in Willow Creek, a small but bold step. "You inspired this," she said. "Will you come?" We hesitated. Going back meant facing the past, the fear, the pain. But it also meant seeing the change we'd helped spark. We agreed, booking a weekend trip. The drive back felt surreal, the familiar coastal roads stirring memories. When we arrived, the town square was alive with color, banners, music, and a small but vibrant crowd. Mia ran to us, her smile bright. "You made it." The event was small, but it was powerful. Kids from the support group spoke, sharing stories of hope and struggle. Locals we'd never expected showed up, some with apologies, others with quiet support. The men who'd threatened us were nowhere to be seen, and I heard later they'd left town, their influence fading. Harper and I stood at the back, holding hands, watching the community we'd helped build. I thought about the girl I'd been when Harper walked into my room, scared, hidden, unsure. I wasn't that girl anymore. I was Ellie, poet, partner, fighter. And I was proud. As the event ended, Mia handed us a small notebook, filled with letters from the group. "This is for you," she said, "for showing us what's possible." Back in Portland, I read the letters, each one a testament to resilience. One stood out from a boy who'd been too shy to speak at meetings. "You showed me I don't have to hide. Thank you." I showed it to Harper, tears in my eyes. She pulled me close, her voice soft. "We did that, Ellie. Together." That night, I wrote a final entry in my journal. Love isn't just a feeling. It's a choice, a fight, a promise. And I'm choosing it every day. Years later, we'd look back on Willow Creek as the place where it all began. Not just our love, but our courage. We'd built a life in Portland, with a home filled with art and poetry, with friends who became family. We'd return to Willow Creek for Pride events, watching the town slowly change, one heart at a time. Harper's first unannounced entrance into my room had been a spark, igniting a fire I didn't know I had. It wasn't just about falling in love with her. It was about falling in love with myself, with the truth that I'd spent so long denying. And in that truth, I found something unbreakable: hope.